teenager when it first happened. It was the early hours of the morning, still some hours before I had to get out of bed for school. I woke up and tried to turn over in bed, but my body wouldn't let me. I was unable to move, paralyzed down to my toes. This is Slant News TV. Please subscribe it. Although my brain was conscious, my muscles were still asleep. My bedroom felt hot and restrictive, like the walls were closing in, and I felt panicked. Finally, after about 15 seconds, the paralysis lifted. Later, I found a name for what had happened to me: sleep paralysis. It's a surprisingly common nighttime condition in which part of your brain wakes up while your body remains temporarily paralyzed. After that initial scary incident, it became a frequent occurrence, with an episode every 2 or 3 nights. The more it happened, the less frightening it became. Eventually, it was little more than an inconvenience. But sleep paralysis can be far more life-affecting. And for some, it comes with terrifying hallucinations. One 24-year-old sufferer I spoke to, who asked to be only identified by her first name, Victoria, remembers it happening one night when she was 18. I woke up and couldn't move, she says. I saw this gremlin-looking figure hiding behind my curtain. It jumped on my chest. I thought I'd entered another dimension. And the scariest thing was I couldn't scream. It was so vivid, so real. Others hallucinate demons, ghosts, aliens, threatening intruders, even dead relatives. They see parts of their own bodies floating in the air, or cloned copies of themselves standing beside their bed. Some see angels and later believe they have had a religious experience. Researchers think these hallucinations may have fueled belief in witches in early modern Europe, and could even explain some modern claims of alien abductions. Scientists think sleep paralysis has probably existed for as long as humans have slept. There are several colorful descriptions of the episodes through literary history, and Mary Shelley was apparently inspired to write a scene in Frankenstein by a painting depicting an episode of sleep paralysis. But until recently it has been little researched. It's been an ignored phenomenon, but over the last 10 years there's been a growing interest, says Balan Jalal, a sleep researcher at Harvard University who in 2020 completed what may have been the first clinical trial into different ways of treating sleep paralysis. Jalal is one of a handful sleep scientists now investing serious time and energy into researching the condition. They hope to paint a more robust picture of the causes and effects, and find out what the condition tells us about the broader mysteries of the human brain. Until recently, there was little agreement about how many people experience sleep paralysis. Studies were sporadic, with little consistency between methods. But in 2011, clinical psychologist Brian Sharpless, currently a visiting associate professor at St. Mary's College of Maryland, conducted the most comprehensive review to date of the condition's prevalence while he was at Pennsylvania State University. It looked at data from 35 studies spanning 5 decades. Collectively they included more than 36,000 volunteers. Sharpless found that sleep paralysis was more common than previously thought, with almost 8% of adults claiming to have experienced it at one point. That figure is much higher among university students, 28%, and psychiatric patients, 32%. It's really not that uncommon, says Sharpless, who is also the co-author of Sleep Paralysis: Historical, Psychological, and Medical Perspectives. After experiencing the condition, some gravitate towards supernatural or even paranormal explanations. In reality, says Jalal, the cause is far more mundane. At night, our body cycles through 4 stages of sleep. The final stage is called rapid eye movement sleep, or REM. This is when we dream. During REM, your brain paralyzes your muscles, probably to stop you physically acting out your dreams and hurting yourself. But sometimes and scientists still aren't sure why the sensory part of your brain emerges from REM prematurely. This makes you feel awake. But the lower part of your brain is still in REM, says Jalal, and is still sending out neurotransmitters to paralyze your muscles. The sensory part of the brain becomes active, says Jalal. You're waking up mentally, perceptually, but physically you're still paralyzed. Doctors say paralysis is more likely to occur when you are sleep deprived, because your sleep architecture is fragmented. Back in my early 20s I experienced sleep paralysis every 2 or 3 nights. But even then, it didn't have much impact on my life. It was an interesting anecdote for friends and family. In that respect, my experience was common. For the majority of people, it's a quirky thing they live with, says Colin Espy, professor of sleep medicine at the University of Oxford.